My director announced my bonus in the staff meeting like he was delivering a punchline, not compensation. $450, he said into the microphone, pausing between each word for dramatic effect. For the year, he didn't whisper it. He didn't mention it quietly after. He read it off the printed sheet nice and loud so everyone in the room and on the video call could hear the number that was supposed to represent 12 months of late nights weekend calls and the fact that my team had hit 119% of our targets. The reaction was instant. Couple of people snorted. Someone in the back actually clapped once, sarcastic and sharp before catching themselves. The Zoom chat on the side of the big screen flashed a stunned emoji, then disappeared just as quickly when whoever sent it realized this wasn't a safe moment for honesty. My ears rang. My cheeks burned. I felt the humiliation like heat climbing up my neck, but my voice when it came out stayed level. That isn't fair, I said. I didn't shout it. I didn't stand. I didn't point. I just said it clearly the way you might say that's the wrong total in a budget review. For a full second the room froze. You could hear the air conditioning. You could hear someone's pen tapping against a notebook. Then Avon, my director, tilted his head and smiled. The way people do when they think they're about to teach you a lesson you'll be grateful for later. Careful, Naomi, he said, dragging my name out like gum. Some people would be grateful to get anything this year. I was sitting halfway down the table, notebook open, agenda printed in front of me. I should have swallowed it. Lots of people did. I'd watched them. But something in me that had been stretching and stretching for years finally stopped bending. I led the highest performing region in the company. Said still calm. My team brought in $3.9 million in net new revenue. $450 for the year isn't recognition. It's an insult. There it was. Clear, simple, true. The laughter that had started as discomfort turned brittle and died. Nobody moved. Nobody jumped in. That's the thing about these moments. Everyone feels the line, but nobody wants to be the one standing on it. Aaron's smile didn't slip right away. He did that slow blink he always did when someone surprised him. Then his jaw tightened just enough to change his face. You know what your problem is, he said, voice dropping half an octave, so it carried without him having to shout. You don't understand how good you have it. He picked up his coffee cup at ceramic, branded with the company logo from some offsite years ago. He turned it in his hand like he was thinking. I'm standing up for myself, I replied. That's not a problem. That's what you told us to do in the last town hall. That did it. Something in his expression snapped from performative to personal. He pivoted toward me, arm flaring out in one clean practiced movement. He didn't throw the whole cup. He flung the contents. A brown arc of coffee flew across the table in a neat, ugly line. It hit me from chin to chest. Hot, not boiling, but hot enough to sting. The room gasped as one organism. Someone said, "Wah!" under their breath. Another chair scraped the floor. I sat there, coffee dripping down the front of my blouse, blazer splattered, the agenda page in front of me, soaking through, ink bleeding. For a heartbeat, Aaron looked satisfied like he'd re-established the hierarchy. Employee steps out of line. Boss puts them back. Then his gaze flicked over my shoulder and the color drained from his face. Because standing directly behind him in the open doorway, one hand still on the handle, was the CEO, not on camera, not in a recording, in person. Close enough to smell the burnt coffee. Close enough to see the spray pattern on my blouse. Close enough to have heard every word of what we just said. What Aaron didn't know, what nobody in that room knew except the CEO and maybe HR, was that this wasn't a surprise visit. The CEO had been waiting for exactly this kind of moment because complaints about Aaron had been piling up quietly for months, and someone had finally told leadership to watch him in action. They just got a better show than they bargained for. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how I got to the point where a director thought throwing coffee at me in front of the entire department was discipline, not career suicide. Before that, if you've ever been handed a bonus that felt more like an insult or watched management confuse disrespect with leadership, hit subscribe because this story isn't about $450. It's about what that number revealed when someone tried to weaponize it and what happened when the wrong person saw the truth in real time. My name is Naomi Westbrook. I'm 37 years old, and for the last 6 years I've been a senior regional manager at a company called Ascend Analytics. We sell data intelligence platforms and predictive modeling tools to healthcare networks and pharmaceutical companies, places that live and die by trends, forecasts, and compliance audits. On the outside, we're all about innovation. On the inside, we're about one thing: numbers. Revenue growth, client retention, expansion rates, churn metrics. If you keep those numbers clean, you get left alone. That was my plan. Stay invisible in the best way. No drama, no missed targets, nothing that made anyone above my direct manager need to know my name for the wrong reasons. I didn't start there. When I joined Ascent, I was 31, coming out of a consulting firm that had been acquired by a private equity group and gutted within 18 months. I'd seen what happens when you're just a line item. One day you're critical to operations, the next day you're redundant headcount. I came here because Ascent was smaller then. 2 regional offices, 3 product lines, and a reputation for treating people fairly. I thought I'd be able to build something stable. My first manager was a woman named Lydia, late 40s. Calm in a way that felt earned, not performed. She taught me the basics of our world. Never lie in a forecast. Never surprise a client in a renewal negotiation. Never promise something the product team hasn't already agreed to deliver. She also taught me something else. In a data-driven business, clean metrics are your shield. If your accounts are clean, no weird discounts, no hidden escalations, no backdated deals, it's a lot harder for anyone to make you the villain when they need a scapegoat. I took that seriously. I learned my accounts inside out. Who actually made decisions, who controlled the budget, which teams hated each other, and which ones were secretly allies. I learned the compliance landscape well enough that I could explain to risk officers exactly how our platform kept them out of regulatory trouble. It worked. By my 3rd year, my renewal rate was the highest in the group. Upsell numbers solid. No clients screaming. No heroic last-minute saves because I hadn't put us in crisis in the first place. I thought that would be enough. Then Lydia left for a VP role at another firm and we got Aaron. If you've ever worked under a manager who sees everything as either a threat or a performance, you already know Aaron. Early 40s, impeccable suits, perfect hair. A voice that sounded like he'd practiced motivational speeches in the mirror. He came from another analytics company where, according to his own telling, he'd transformed an underperforming sales division into a growth engine. No one from that company was around to confirm or deny it. On his first day, he called a mandatory team meeting, stood at the front of the room, leaned on the table with his knuckles like he was about to deliver a sermon. "This is a new chapter for Ascent," he said. "We're not just account managers anymore. We're revenue architects, and I don't reward effort, I reward results." People nodded. Nobody asked what that meant in practice. We were too busy trying to make our quarterly numbers. For the first few months, Aaron played the role well. He praised hustle. He sent chat messages at 6 o'clock in the morning and 11 at night, always with a little exclamation point, like insomnia was a team-building exercise. He took credit for every win in front of leadership and gave credit in one-on-one calls. It's a common move. Tell the bosses we're doing great. Tell the team you're doing great. Make sure you're the common denominator. The cracks started small. A joke here, a dig there. They always do. It's never straight to coffee throwing. It's a gradient. The first time he aimed something at me, it was framed as banter. I had to leave one day at 4:30 to pick up my daughter from daycare because my husband was stuck in surgery at the hospital where he worked. I told Aaron in advance, calendar blocked, coverage arranged. When I stood up and grabbed my bag, Aaron leaned back in his chair loud enough for the open floor to hear and said, "Must be nice. Some of us earn our hours." Couple of people laughed. Reflex. Not because it was funny, because not laughing would have been dangerous. I smiled tightly, said, "Some of us schedule our family obligations like we schedule our client calls. No surprises." And left. I shouldn't have volleyed back. In his mind, that wasn't a comment. That was a warning shot. After that, the joke sharpened. In pipeline reviews, Naomi's got the premium accounts. The rest of you take notes. In email threads copying senior leadership so we can all see the magic Naomi's charging us for. When I closed a large 3-year renewal with expansion, he forwarded the closed one notice to the VP and added, "Our star performer does it again." Then in our one-on-one later that week, he leaned back in his chair, folded his hands behind his head and said, "You know, you're pricing yourself out of the conversation, right?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Your comp," he said. "You keep performing like this. Gets harder for me to justify you. Upper management starts asking why one regional manager costs more than the others." "You approved my last raise," I said. "Yeah," he said. "And I need to make sure I'm still getting a return." He said it with a half smile like it was a harmless observation, but the message was clear. You're not a person. You're a line item. And if your number makes me nervous, I'll make you nervous. Kept my head down. I told myself it was politics. I told myself, as long as my numbers stayed clean and my clients stayed happy, I'd be safe. Then 2 managers above Aaron disappeared in the same month. No announcements, no farewells. One day their names were in the org chart. The next their Slack accounts were deactivated. When someone asked in a meeting where they'd gone, Aaron clapped his hands once and said, "Streamlining." With a grin, trimming the fat, he added, "Compan's serious about performance now." The laughter then was louder. Not because anyone liked it and because fear amplifies sound. The message was unmistakable. If you cost more than he could easily explain, you were a problem and problems were disposable. I should have seen it coming. I should have recognized the pattern. But I told myself my shield would hold. My accounts were stable. My book was clean. My clients liked me. I had the emails, the feedback surveys, the renewal percentages to prove it. In a data-driven business, clean metrics are currency. I thought that currency bought safety until the bonus meeting. Once a year, Ascent held a compensation communication session. They never called it a bonus meeting. Too loaded, too clear. They framed it as transparency. "We want everyone to understand how rewards are structured," HR would say. In reality, it was theater where directors got to play generous with budgets they didn't set. Normally, bonuses were communicated quietly. Individual emails, private one-on-ones. This year leadership changed something. They wanted managers to celebrate wins publicly. That's how the HR email put it. So, everyone filed into the big multi-purpose room on the 8th floor. Those who couldn't came in through the big screen on the wall, little video squares from home offices and client sites. There was an agenda. Company results, department highlights, then recognition and rewards. I sat with my team halfway down the left side, Elena on my right, Cooper on my left. We'd had a good year, brutal quarters, sure, but we'd hit and kept hitting. The CEO ran through the usual slide deck. Revenue growth, market expansion, a bullet point about record retention rates in regulated accounts. That bullet, I knew, came directly from the accounts my team and I handled. Then it was Aaron's turn. He strutted to the front like a man warming up for his keynote. He made a few jokes. Thanked the team for grinding through the hard months. Said he was so proud to lead this group of warriors. Then he pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Nothing on the agenda said what he was about to do. HR's segment was supposed to come later. He held the page up with a theatrical flourish. "You know what everyone really wants to hear today?" he said, looking around the room. "Let me guess," he answered himself. "How the money shook out." Softer laughter. HR shifted nervously in their seats. Their rep, a man named Julian, half raised a hand like he might intervene, then thought better of it. Aaron scanned the paper. "All year," he said, "we've been talking about impact. Not just effort, not just time and seat. Impact." He let the word hang. Then he looked straight at me. "Since we're talking about impact," he said, "let's talk about what it costs to keep some of that impact around." He took a step toward our table, paper still in hand. "Let's take our star performer," he said, sweeping his hand toward me like a game show host. "Naomi here." I felt every eye in the room turn. The remote faces on the screen leaned a little closer to their cameras. My stomach tightened. He wouldn't, not even him. Base salary, Aaron said loudly and clearly, reading from the paper. $17,000. You could feel the air change. It wasn't a gasp. It was worse. It was that tight, embarrassed sound people make when they're not sure if they're supposed to react or pretend they didn't hear. A few people tittered. Someone muttered, "Damn," under their breath. On the screen, at least one remote camera froze mid-expression. Sure looked like statues. Julian's eyes were wide, lips pressed into a thin line. I could feel the heat crawling up my neck, but my voice when it came stayed steady. "That isn't appropriate," I said. Aaron grinned. "This is transparency," he said. "We talk about value, don't we? Let's talk about value." He leaned forward a little. "Naomi," he said, "why don't you explain to the room why you're worth that?" Silence amplified. Soft hum of the vents. Click of someone's pen. Somewhere the video call delay made a tiny echo. Could have shut up. I could have swallowed it and let him turn my pay into a weapon. But that line had been crossed. He put my number on the table, so I put the facts next to it. "My accounts brought in more renewals than anyone in this department last year," I said, clear and measured. "And you signed off on my compensation in writing." The room went very still. Not the polite stillness of meetings, the charged stillness of a dropped match. Aaron's smile collapsed. He stared at me like I'd spoken a language he didn't authorize. He pushed his chair back. The metal legs scraped the floor. Slowly, he stood, walked around the far side of the table behind my chair, closer than needed. Close enough that I could smell strong coffee on his breath and the sharp, expensive cologne he wore for executive meetings. He leaned down inches from my ear. "Don't correct me in front of them," he hissed. The microphone on his shirt might not have picked it up, but the people nearest us heard. I saw Ella Lenina's eyes widen. Cooper's jaw clench. I began to turn my head to face him properly. I didn't get halfway. His arm snapped. It wasn't a flail. It wasn't clumsy. It was swift and deliberate, honed by some private fantasy he'd apparently been replaying for a while. He flung his coffee straight at me. The cup stayed in his hand. 50. Plausible deniability. The liquid didn't. It splashed across my face and bloused in a hot wave, splattering my notebook, the table, the floor. Shock hit before pain. My chair rocked. Someone gasped, an audible high sound. A pen clattered to the floor from somewhere across the table. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," someone said, voice breaking. And that's when the door opened. Not slowly, not slammed, just on time. The CEO stood there, one hand on the handle, looking at my soaked blouse, the drip of coffee off the edge of the table. Aaron with his arms still half extended. Behind him, just over his shoulder, I caught a glimpse of Julian from HR, eyes wide, face pale. They hadn't expected this, but they had expected something because nobody walks into a staff meeting at that exact second by accident. From that moment on, there were two stories being written at the same time. Aaron's version, I was being unprofessional. I provoked him. It was a heat-of-the-moment gesture. And my version, he disclosed confidential compensation in a group setting. He demanded justification. He retaliated when I refused to shrink. The difference between those two stories was going to decide whether I walked away with my career intact or with a quiet exit and a mutual separation email. But that's the part that came later. Right then, standing in that room with coffee cooling on my skin, I watched the CEO's eyes move from Aaron to me to the paper in Aaron's hand and back. He didn't shout. He didn't rush. He just said one sentence that sliced the air cleaner than any raised voice. "Everybody out," he said. The effect was immediate. Chairs pushed back. Laptops snapped shut. People moved toward the door in a fast, clumsy shuffle. Some stole glances at me. Most didn't. The remote faces on the screen blinked out as someone at the console killed the conference. Julian from HR stepped fully into the room. Another HR rep behind him, both with tablets in hand. The CEO pointed at Aaron. "You stay," he said. Then he pointed at me. "You stay." Everyone else left. The door closed. The hum of the vents got louder. The coffee on my blouse felt colder, and for the first time in my career, I was on the wrong side of a line I hadn't drawn. The CEO's name was Walter Ashford, early 50s ex-CFO at a larger firm brought in 3 years ago to stabilize the cent after the founder retired. I'd only spoken to him twice before this. Once at an all-hands, once in an elevator where he asked me about my weekend and I said good because my brain went blank under pressure. Now he stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, looking at Aaron like a disappointed parent, then at me like he was cataloging damage. Julian set his tablet on the table and opened what looked like a template form. The other HR rep, a younger woman I didn't recognize, stood by the door with a phone in hand, already recording something. Walter spoke first. "Aaron," he said, "did you just throw coffee at an employee?" Aaron opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "It wasn't. I didn't throw it at her," he said. "Slip. She was being hostile." "And stop," Walter said, voice flat. I watched it happen. Aaron's face went from defensive to something closer to panic. "She embarrassed me in front of the team," Aaron said, pivoting fast. "She's been insubordinate for weeks. I was trying to manage the situation, and by disclosing her salary," Walter asked. Silence. Julian's pen moved across his tablet screen. The recording continued. Walter turned to me. "Are you injured?" I looked down at my blouse. The coffee had cooled, but the skin on my neck and chest felt tight. "I don't think so," I said. "Do you need medical attention?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly. Walter nodded once. "Julian, arrange for her to be seen by urgent care immediately. Insurance covers it. Document everything." Then he looked at Aaron. "You're suspended," he said. "Effective now. Pending investigation. Leave your badge and laptop with security on your way out." Aaron's eyes went wide. "You're suspending me for what?" "He's the one who you assaulted an employee," Walter said, voice harder now. "In a staff meeting. After publicly disclosing confidential compensation information in front of witnesses and a recorded call." He stepped closer to Aaron. "Do you understand how much liability you just created?" Aaron's mouth worked, but nothing came out. Walter gestured to the HR rep by the door. "Escort him out." The HR rep moved forward. Aaron looked at me one last time, not apologetic, not regretful, angry like I'd done this to him. Then he turned and walked out. The HR rep close behind. The door clicked shut. For a moment, the room was silent except for the faint hum of Julian typing notes. Walter exhaled slowly, then looked at me. "I'm sorry that happened," he said. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. "We're going to handle this properly," he continued. "Full investigation. You'll have access to everything you need. And if you choose to pursue this externally, the company won't interfere." That last sentence landed differently than the rest. It wasn't just an apology. It was a signal. They knew this was bad. Bad enough to lawyer-proof their response in real time. Julian stood. "Naomi, I'm going to walk you to urgent care myself," he said. "Then we'll schedule a formal statement. Take the rest of the day paid." I looked down at my coffee-stained blouse again. "Okay," I said. I stood legs steadier than I expected and followed Julian out. Behind us, I heard Walter make a call. "Claire, we have a situation." Urgent care was quiet that afternoon. Julian sat in the waiting room while a nurse took my vitals, and a physician's assistant examined the redness on my neck and chest. "Any blistering?" she asked. "No," I said. "Pain?" "It stings a little," she made notes. "Consistent with hot liquid contact," she said aloud, typing. "No severe burns. Recommend cool compress and monitor for irritation." Then she asked the question that shifted the tone. "Did this happen at work?" "Yes," I said. Her typing slowed. "Were you injured intentionally?" I hesitated, then decided the truth was simpler than spin. She nodded once, printed the visit summary, and handed it to me. "Keep this," she said. "You may need it later." I folded it carefully and put it in my bag. When I came back out, Julian was on his phone typing rapidly. He looked up when I approached. "How are you?" he asked. Fine, I said mostly. He stood. I'm going to drive you home, he said. Your car can stay in the lot overnight. I didn't argue on the drive. He didn't make small talk. He didn't ask leading questions. He just said one thing quietly as we pulled up to my building. What he did was wrong, he said. And we're going to make sure it's documented correctly. I believed him, not because I trusted HR, because I'd seen Walter's face. This wasn't containment. This was damage control with accountability baked in. I got out, thanked him, and went inside. My daughter was at a friend's house that afternoon. The apartment was quiet. I stood in the bathroom, peeled off the ruined blouse, and looked at myself in the mirror. Red skin, tired eyes, a faint coffee stain still visible along my collarbone. I took photos, 3 angles, date and time showing on my phone. Then I uploaded them to my personal cloud storage. Not because I wanted revenge, because I'd learned the hard way that companies forget faster than bruises fade. That night my phone lit up. Messages from coworkers. Are you okay? What the hell just happened? Aaron is telling people you lunged at him. That last one made my stomach drop. I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I didn't want to, because I knew how investigations twist contact into coordination. Instead, I opened my laptop and started writing. I wrote down everything I could remember. The exact words Aaron used when he read my salary. The exact sentence I said in response, who laughed, who gasped, the angle of his arm when he threw the coffee, the CEO's position in the doorway, the time on the wall clock when it happened. I listed every witness in person and remote. I noted who sat where because proximity matters when stories start changing. I saved 3 copies, one on my laptop, one in the cloud, one printed and filed in a drawer. Then I did something I hadn't planned on. I called an employment attorney. Her name was Lorraine Foster, mid-40s, 22 years in employment law. I'd found her through a friend who'd gone through a wrongful termination case. She listened without interrupting while I walked through what happened. When I finished, she asked 3 questions. Do you have medical documentation? Yes. Do you have witnesses? Yes. At least 20. Do you have proof he disclosed your compensation? I thought about the paper in his hand. I saw it printed. I said I don't have a copy. That's okay, she said. If HR does their job, they'll secure it. Then she asked a 4th question. Do you want to go back to that company? I hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know, I said honestly. That's fine, she said. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't just about the coffee. It's about retaliation, hostile work environment, and privacy violations. Those are serious. The company knows that, which means they're going to move fast to contain it. What does that mean for me? Yes. It means they'll either handle this correctly and hold him accountable, or they'll try to bury it quietly and make you go away. Your job right now is to document everything and make sure the truth survives the process. She gave me clear instructions. Don't resign. Don't meet with anyone alone. Keep everything in writing. Request evidence preservation formally. And if they retaliate in any way, document it immediately. And one more thing, and she said, don't underestimate how quickly a company can rewrite history when they're scared. I thanked her and hung up. Then I opened my email and wrote to Julian. Subject: Evidence preservation request. I kept it professional and clear. I requested that all security footage from the meeting room be preserved. I requested that the Zoom recording and chat logs be preserved. I requested that the attendance list and meeting invite be preserved. I requested that any documents used to access my compensation be preserved. I requested that my personnel file and performance reviews be frozen. I hit send at 11:49. At 11:54, Julian replied, acknowledged all materials will be preserved per standard protocol, 5 minutes. That told me 2 things. 1, he was expecting this. 2, he was taking it seriously. I set my phone down and tried to sleep. I didn't. The next morning I woke up to an email from HR. Subject: Administrative leave paid. It was professional, neutral, and terrifying. Effective immediately. You are being placed on paid administrative leave while we conduct a thorough investigation into the events of date. During this time, you are not required to work or respond to work-related communications. You will be contacted by HR to schedule a formal interview. Please do not discuss the incident with current employees. I read it 3 times. Paid leave standard language. But it also meant I was being removed from the building while they figured out what to do. I forwarded the email to Lorraine. She called me 10 minutes later. This is normal, she said. Don't panic. They're separating you from Aaron while they investigate. It's actually a good sign. How is being kicked out a good sign? Yes. Because it means they're treating this like a real incident, not a personality conflict. If they were burying it, they'd keep you both at work and hope it blew over. That made sense, but it didn't make it feel better. 3 days later I got a calendar invite. Formal incident interview, HR and legal. The meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the morning in person. Julian and someone from legal. I confirmed attendance and forwarded it to Lorraine. Do you want me there? She asked. Can you be? Not inside the room unless they agree, she said. But I can be in the building. And you can request breaks to consult with me. Do it, I said. The morning of the interview, I dressed like I was going to a board meeting. Pressed blouse, blazer, the works. Not because I cared about impressing HR, because I wanted to look like someone who takes things seriously. I arrived 15 minutes early. Lorraine was already in the lobby sitting with her laptop and a coffee. Remember, she said quietly. Stick to facts. Don't speculate. Don't exaggerate. If you don't remember something, say so. He nodded. At 10, Julian appeared and led me to a small conference room. Inside, Julian, the legal rep from before. He introduced himself as Caleb and a court reporter. Court reporter. That's when I knew this was real. Caleb gestured to a chair. Thank you for coming, he said. This is a formal interview. Everything you say will be recorded and transcribed. You have the right to have an attorney present or to take breaks to consult with one. My attorney is in the building, I said. Caleb nodded. Understood. Julian opened his tablet. We're going to walk through the events of dates, he said. Start from the beginning of the meeting. For the next hour I walked them through everything. The agenda, Aaron's speech, the moment he read my salary, the reaction in the room, my response, his approach, the coffee, the CEO in the doorway. Caleb asked clarifying questions. Did you stand at any point? No. Did you raise your voice? No. Did you make any physical movements toward Aaron? No. I started to turn my head when he was behind me, but I didn't stand or move toward him. Julian made notes. Do you know how Aaron obtained your compensation information? No, I said, but it was printed on paper. He didn't just remember it. Caleb wrote something down. Have you experienced any other incidents with Aaron prior to this? Thought carefully. He's made comments about my pay before. I said in one-on-ones. He told me I was pricing myself out of the conversation. He's also made public comments about my schedule when I leave to pick up my daughter. Can you give specific examples? I did. 3 incidents, dates, context, exact quotes where I could remember them. By the time we finished, it was nearly noon. Caleb closed his folder. Thank you, he said. We'll be interviewing other attendees over the next week. If we have follow-up questions, we'll reach out, Julian added. You'll remain on paid leave until the investigation concludes. We'll keep you updated. I stood, shook their hands, and left. Lorraine was still in the lobby. How did it go? She asked. Professional, I said. They recorded everything. Good, she said. That protects you. Over the next 2 weeks, my phone stayed mostly quiet. No work emails, no Slack messages, just silence. But I heard things through the grapevine. Elena texted me once. Char interviewed me today. I told them exactly what I saw. You didn't do anything wrong. Cooper sent a short message. They asked if you were aggressive. I said, no. Aaron was the only aggressive person in that room. Even people I didn't know well reached out. A junior analyst. I was on the Zoom. I saw everything. I told HR the truth. Each message felt like a small anchor. Proof that I wasn't imagining it. Proof that the story Aaron was trying to build, volatile employee, heat of the moment, mutual conflict, wasn't going to hold. On day 13 of my leave, I got another email from Julian. Subject: Investigation update. The investigation into the events of date has concluded. We will be scheduling a meeting with you and senior leadership to discuss findings and next steps. Please confirm your availability for daytime. I confirmed. Then I called Lorraine. This is it, she said. They've made a decision. Good or bad? Yes. We'll find out, she said. But the fact that they're bringing in senior leadership is significant. That's not how they handle things when they're planning to bury them. The meeting was set for the following Monday, 10 o'clock in the morning. Same conference room. This time when I walked in, the CEO was there. Walter Ashford, Julian, Caleb from legal, and one other person I didn't recognize. A woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense expression. Walter gestured to a chair. Naomi, thank you for coming. This is Sarah Knight, our Chief People Officer. I shook her hand and sat. Walter didn't waste time. We've completed a full investigation into the incident, he said. We interviewed 24 witnesses, reviewed security footage, reviewed the Zoom recording, and analyzed the document Aaron used during the meeting. He slid a folder across the table. Here are our findings. Opened it. The summary was clinical but clear. Aaron disclosed confidential compensation information without authorization. Aaron created a hostile environment by demanding public justification. Aaron committed workplace violence by throwing coffee at an employee. Aaron violated company policy on personnel data handling. Aaron's actions created significant legal and reputational risk. Below that in bold outcome termination for cause effective immediately I looked up. Walter's expression was serious. Aaron is no longer with the company. He said, we've also launched a review of how compensation data is accessed and shared to prevent this from happening again. Sarah spoke next. We want to be clear. She said, what happened to you was unacceptable. It violated our policies and our values. We failed to protect you, and for that we apologize. It was the first time anyone from the company had used the word apologized. I didn't know what to say. Caleb sent another document across. We're offering the following, he said. I scanned the page. Full back pay for the leave period. Coverage of all medical expenses related to the incident. Option to return to your role under a new manager or transition to a different team. Additional compensation as a settlement for the harm caused. Confidentiality agreement optional. Not required. No retaliation clause with legal enforceability. At the bottom, a number significant more than I expected. Walter leaned forward. We're not asking you to sign anything today, he said. Take time. Consult with your attorney. We want to make this right. I folded the document and looked at him. What about the people who helped him? Yes. The people who pulled my pay data. The people who didn't stop him. Sarah answered. The HR coordinator who accessed the data has been disciplined and retrained. We determined that Aaron misrepresented the purpose of the request, but the access protocols were insufficient. We've updated them. Not fired, disciplined. I didn't love that, but I understood it. Intent matters even in failures. Can I ask a question? Said. Course, Walter said. Why were you outside the door that day? Walter smiled faintly. We'd received multiple complaints about Aaron over the prior 7 months, he said. Mostly informal. People were afraid to put things in writing, but the pattern was clear. So, when we scheduled the bonus meeting, I made sure I'd be nearby. You were waiting for him to do something, I said. I was hoping he wouldn't, Walter said. But I wasn't surprised when he did. That honesty landed better than any corporate script. I took the documents home, reviewed them with Lorraine. This is a good offer, she said. Better than most companies would do. Should I take it? Yes. That depends, she said. Do you want to stay? Thought about it. The accounts I'd built, the clients who trusted me, the team I'd worked with. And then I thought about walking back into that building and seeing the conference room where it happened. I don't know. I said. Then take your time. Lorraine said. You earned that. In the end, I negotiated one more thing. I asked for the right to tell my story if I chose to without violating confidentiality on specific settlement terms. They agreed. Sign. And 2 weeks later, I walked back into ASIN under a new manager on a new floor with a new team. Felt different. Not bad, just different. People treated me carefully at first. Not coldly, carefully. Like I was fragile. I wasn't. I was just tired. Elena stopped by my desk the first day back and sat down a coffee. Not branded, just good coffee. "Welcome back," she said. Smiled. "Thanks." Over the next few months, things settled. I rebuilt my rhythm. My account stayed strong. My numbers stayed clean. And slowly, people stopped treating me like the woman who got coffee thrown at her and started treating me like the woman who did good work. For months after I returned, I saw a brief mention in an industry newsletter. A short line about a director departing an analytics firm following an internal conduct review. No details, no drama. Just a quiet obituary for a career that relied on people staying silent. I stared at it for a long time, then closed the email and went back to work. Because the truth is, the best revenge wasn't watching him fall. It was realizing he couldn't make me small with a number again. He read my pay out loud to own the room. In the end, the only number that mattered was the one he didn't control. How many witnesses remembered exactly what he did? My daughter asked me once a few months after everything settled. Why I seemed lighter. Why I smiled more when I came home from work. I thought about how to explain it to a 9-year-old about power and dignity and what it means to stand up when standing up costs something. In the end, I just said, sometimes people try to make you feel small because they're scared you're bigger than they are. And when you don't shrink, you win. She nodded like that made perfect sense. And maybe it did. I still work at a cent. Still manage the same accounts, though a few new ones have been added. My new manager, Corey, is quiet and methodical. She asks questions instead of making pronouncements. She gives credit where it's due and doesn't perform leadership like it's a TED Talk audition. The conference room where it happened got renovated 6 months later. New paint, new furniture, new layout. I don't know if that was intentional or just coincidence, but I appreciated it either way. Sometimes I see Julian in the hallway and we nod at each other with a kind of mutual understanding. He did his job well. Did mine. And between us, something shifted in how the company handles these things. I hear the access protocols for compensation data are tighter now. I hear managers get more training on workplace conduct. I hear HR takes complaints more seriously, even the informal ones. I don't know if that's because of me or if I was just part of a larger wave. Either way, it matters. The settlement number, the one I can't disclose, went into a college fund for my daughter and a savings account that gives me options. Options are a kind of freedom. The freedom to walk away if I ever need to. The freedom to say no without fear. The freedom to know that my voice, my work, my dignity aren't negotiable. Aaron tried to turn $450 into a weapon, into proof that I should be grateful, into a public humiliation. Designed to remind me of my place. Instead, it became the number that revealed everything about him, about the company, about what happens when someone mistakes cruelty for control and forgets that witnesses have voices too. I don't think about him often anymore. When I do, it's not with anger. It's with something closer to pity. He built a career on making people feel small. And in the end, the only person who ended up small was him. Sometimes people ask me if I'm glad I spoke up, if it was worth it. The answer is complicated. Speaking up cost me weeks of stress, sleepless nights, and the exhausting work of defending my own reality against someone else's fiction. It cost me the comfort of invisibility and the safety of staying quiet. But staying quiet would have cost me more. It would have cost me my sense of self, my belief that clean numbers and good work means something. My ability to look my daughter in the eye and tell her that standing up for yourself isn't just a nice idea. It's a necessity. So yes, it was worth it. Not because I won, not because he lost, but because I didn't shrink. And in a world that constantly tells women to be smaller, quieter, more grateful for less, that refusal to shrink might be the most radical thing I've ever done. The coffee stain eventually came out of the blazer. The medical documentation is filed away in a drawer I rarely open. The photos are still in my cloud storage just in case, though I doubt I'll ever need them. What stays with me isn't the coffee or the humiliation or even the investigation. It's the moment right after when the room went silent and I had to decide whether to swallow it or say something. I chose to say something. And everything that came after the investigation, the termination, the settlement, the changes, all of it started with that choice. You don't always get justice. You don't always get an apology. You don't always get a CEO standing in the doorway at exactly the right moment, but you always get the choice to speak or stay silent, to shrink or stand. I chose to stand and I choose it again. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next.